The surefire way to make you hate your life when you're doing creative projects is to accept projects from clients. Trust me, in my 6 years of doing this, I have had every nightmare project you can imagine, and many more. So in this video, I'm gonna give you some of the red flags to look out for when you're accepting your own creative projects for your freelancing business, for your agency, whatever it is. Just look out for these things and it'll make your life a whole lot easier. Hey, my name is Sher. If we've never met before, pleasure to meet you. For the last 6 years, I've been running my web design agency, the Sher agency, helping businesses make websites and all kinds of other good stuff, but I've learned a lot of lessons, and in this video, I'm gonna share some of them with you. If you're new here, be sure to like and subscribe, and you'll get all kinds of good information like this. So to get started, the first major red flag that I look out for from a client is if after I send them a proposal, they start redacting it and making all kinds of notes on it and send it back to me with like a ton of different revisions and questions about the proposal. You know, some questions are normal and there's bound to be some conversation and negotiation that happens, but for the most part, the terms in a proposal are meant to be displayed as this is how I work, this is how it goes. If a client comes back to me with a list of concessions that they want me to make, that means that they're probably not going to be compliant with the process that I want them to go through. Specifically, if they get into little legal details like which state's laws are going to govern this contract, what are the terms and how many days of return policy do they want if the project goes badly. There are so many little details that really shouldn't matter, and in fact they almost never do in any project I've ever been a part of. Some clients are really particular about this kind of thing, and that lets me know that they're going to be particular about just about everything else in the project too. I've actually had clients do this to me, and then I just increase the price of the project and send it back to them because I can tell that they're going to be a challenge to work with. I don't recommend you do that, but that's just an indication of how seriously I take this specific piece of advice. The second point is that the client shouldn't really have any crazy unrealistic expectations, and this can be in a few different forms. One unrealistic expectation is that like they hand me Apple's website and they're like, can you make this for me? No, I can't. No one can make Apple's website other than their team of UI designers that work for them full time, right? Apple has a budget that you don't have. The other kind of unrealistic expectation that a client can have is around the timeline. Hey Max, can you make Apple's website in 3 days? No, I can't. No one can. So what I recommend is you need to propose all of those different terms and make sure that if the client has any crazy unrealistic expectations, recognize that if you can't reason with them and explain to them why those expectations aren't reasonable, that's likely to be a problem throughout the process. My third red flag that I'm always looking out for with a prospective client is bad communication between the client and I. If the client can't understand what I'm saying or is asking me questions that I've already explained to them multiple times, that's typically a red flag that we're gonna have many issues and we're not gonna be on the same page throughout the course of the project. And I'll tell you what, one project where you and the client cannot get on the same page will ruin your 2 months or 3 months or however long the process lasts, because it's going to be a constant source of stress, regret for taking the project, and resentment towards the client and yourself because you should have seen it coming. So I recommend if you notice that this client is someone that you can't communicate effectively with, run the other way. Now, a special exception needs to be made for if you're working with, say, an older client and your specific area of expertise is a little bit more technical, like mine can be sometimes, or if you're a software developer, you do need to have some kind of wiggle room. But, you know, I've had older clients, and I still have many older clients, that while I don't understand the details of what I do, if I communicate clearly and I say, hey, you know, this is what you're approving right now, can you just quickly look at it real quick and make sure that it looks good, they'll understand, right? And they can actually have an intelligent conversation with me. You don't want to be working with people who really struggle to understand the basics of what you do for a living. Run the other way. This is another one that's a major pet peeve of mine. The fourth red flag. If they're trying to make me feel bad for the way that previous developers have treated them, or previous whatever you do have treated them. For example, if a client comes to me and says, you know, I've been burned by a bunch of developers in the past, and you know, I just want to make sure it's not happening again this time. We're starting off the relationship on a bad foot here. I don't want to come in and change your expectations about how developers are, because if I'm starting at an uphill battle, I don't want anything to do with that. I want to be going into it something with a clean slate where we're in good faith and we both expect each other to act like professionals and assume that we will do so. That's how I like to structure my relationships. Now, I know some freelancers that they get a lot of validation from, you know, changing the expectations that someone has around the industry. I don't need that in my life. I don't want to be fighting uphill battles. I don't want anything to be harder for me than it should be, because if you're in that kind of relationship, you have to justify yourself every single time you make a recommendation or decision. And truthfully, you're better off being with someone who's going to give you the freedom to do what you need to do to succeed in the project and not micromanage every single moment of the project, because that's going to make you feel like crap. And if you've got team members, it's going to frustrate them. It's going to be challenging to get them to go along with your processes. And you know what? You're better off avoiding that kind of project. Beyond that, you're more than likely not going to succeed at that because, like I said, it is an uphill battle. They're just going to go around complaining about you to other people. You know already that they're a complainer and that they're someone that holds other people accountable for things that really aren't their fault. So really, be very cautious about entering any agreements with people who have demonstrated a lack of professionalism in this way to you. Here's a red flag that not a lot of people know about. If a prospect reaches out to me and before their initial conversation, they want me to sign some kind of a non-disclosure agreement, it tells me that they don't know too much about business. One of two things is the case. First is they don't have a comprehension of how hard their company is going to be to start. And I say to start because no established companies ever ask you to do this. This is always someone who's got a new idea that they haven't started yet, which is, in my business, already a red flag, but let's put that aside. They don't have a concept of how hard it is to start this kind of a company. If they feel like I have their secret sauce by them telling me what their core business is, and we can determine if I can build them a website, they're not far enough along to the point where they're certainly going to launch this company. In my experience, if someone's asking you to sign a non-disclosure this early in the game, this means that they're probably not going to end up launching their company. If someone's asking me to sign a non-disclosure, and especially a non-compete this early in the game, the answer is no. Additionally, non-competes should never be signed, except for very specific circumstances, maybe if you're a software engineer, but if you're a web designer, if you're a logo designer, if you're a graphic designer, if you're a blogger, if you're a freelance writer, anything like that, you shouldn't be signing non-competes. It makes no sense. My last tip for you today on red flags to look for in prospective clients is if they're asking you to do work for free. Now, I've made other videos about how you should offer to do work for free as a way to get your first batch of clients or maybe other projects later on, but it's very different if the client is coming to you and asking you to do free work. Hey Max, can I see a couple ideas of what your ideas for my homepage are? I just learned a few things about you. The first thing is you don't trust me. You don't have enough trust that I can actually execute on what I'm proposing. If you think that you need to see what I'm gonna do before I can do it, that's not gonna happen. Second is you've probably never worked with creatives before because that's not how you do it. You can't ask people for creative work before you hire them for creative work. And the third thing is they have no value for your time. If someone's not willing to pay you for your initial ideas, they don't think that your time is worth anything. So how can you expect to have a reasonable negotiation about price, value, return on investment, anything like that if they think your time is worth zero? Those are my tips for you. If you avoid those things, your life will be easier, I promise. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more tips on how to make your life easier as a freelancer, as an agency owner, whatever you're doing. I'm sure I got something for you. See y'all later.